Hi, I'm Collin, and I'm a guitar maker, and I have some very specific thoughts about the guitars I make. And while I'm here at my dad's house at Christmas time, it's the day after Christmas on 2010, I want to document a couple of the guitars that he has and some of the formative thoughts that I've had about guitars. I have a couple of guitars here that I made. One that I made for my dad, which was the fourth guitar that I made, and then one that I made here for Ed, which if I remember correctly, is the 16th guitar that I've made. But the one I made for Ed Finch, is a J45 style guitar, like Gibson J45 style guitar. And my inspiration for this guitar is mostly this 1946 Gibson J45 that my family has. My uncle had it for a long time, but it was originally owned by my mom's grandfather. Okay. Anyway, this guitar has been around, and it's a 1946, which is as good a specs as you're going to find. It has a laminated neck. I believe this one is a maple neck with walnut laminations. It's a 5-piece neck. A lot of times we think of these laminated necks as having just one walnut stripe in the middle, and a lot of them do. But this one has a 5-piece with 2 of them, and I believe it's maple. So some of them are mahogany, but most of the time when they're laminated like this, they're maple, which is a good neck material. I did a laminated maple on my first prototype. I've since switched to poplar, which I really enjoy working with, and seems to be, oddly enough, even though you wouldn't think of it as hard, even more stable than the maple ones that I've made. But that's here nor there. It's a good material. This is Honduran pattern grade mahogany on the back and sides, and it's just really beautiful. This is like one of the greatest guitars ever made, for these type of vintage, bluegrass and country music type guitars. They started making a thing called the J45 that was $35 back in the I think in the mid-30s, late 30s, something like that. And then went through a couple of incarnations. They did a J40, and then ultimately when they went to the J45, they changed the bracing a little bit. They took out one of the tone bars, and they altered it a little bit. And then this guitar has been in production ever since, and has been Gibson's most successful model. The Gibson guitars, the thing that really makes them special though is the finish. At this point, Gibson had started doing nitrocellulose lacquer, which Martin had been the champion of. Gibson was most famous originally for their hand-rubbed finishes, which were similar to like the old violins, and they had a oil and varnish mixture, and it was a rubbed finish. And they did that in the 20s and 30s, but coming in the 40s, they had completely switched over to sprayed lacquer. And you can see what happens after a while. You can see some pretty good crazing back here. What happens is the lacquer sits on top of the guitar, and they dry it at different rates. So as the wood very slightly moves and breathes, that lacquer breaks. But you can see it's a very nice thin. Like the later ones, they craze a whole lot more. This, you could almost mistake this for varnish. And then when you also look at how this graduation is on the sunburst, on the transition from brown to amber here, you can clearly see that this is sprayed. How the transition is so even and fogged like that. So beautiful finish though, beautiful light finish. This is the most prized kind of situation. It's all original. obviously, which is great. You never would want to mess with a guitar like this. Like, values change. You know, I had heard at one point that this guitar would fetch $20,000 without breaking a sweat, and maybe even to a wholesaler. But if this thing had been refinished, it would be like maybe 5,000 or 6,000, something like that. But again, values change daily, so I really don't know exactly where we're at right now. And it sounds just like a J45 should. It has that real nice, where you can hear the articulation of the strings, rather than some guitar, like the Martin Dreadnoughts. A lot of times I think of the best examples of those as being a lot more air chamber, you know, and resonance and stuff like that. This one has just like a really nice resonance from the air chamber, but it's also very articulate from the strings, and it has that real chimey, nice crisp sound. Plays like a dream. It's got an ivory saddle here and an ivory nut. The most recent setup and restoration that was done on this was done by an awesome repair person. So it's killer. This is 5-ply rosette here, and this particular one doesn't have any binding right inside the sound hole. Most of them do. Like, fabulous guitar. You look at the back and you see, a lot of times what you see on guitars, most of the time what you see is it's flat across this lower bout with a little 16th inch relief on each end, and then it slopes down. These J45s seem to have a little bit more of a gradual. It's a greater fall off on the upper bout, but on the lower bout, it you know, it seems like a little bit more of a constant angle. So we move from there to the guitar that I just built at Finch, and you can see that the same attention has been given to these contours here. The way I shaped the necks is very organic. They had a little bit more pronounced V here, but I had made my depth, and, you know, like I say, in the same spirit of this, it's just, you know, it's hand carved and profiled, and everyone's a little bit different. I've done the exact same thing, where I've dropped it off more severely here, but I've allowed a little bit of that constant angle to go here, and that's very precisely monitored. Now, on this one, it doesn't have any, it has the white outside ABS lining, but it doesn't have any purfling on the inside. It's just a 1-ply. I did something a little bit fancier on Ed's just as a bonus. I put in a 3-ply black, white, black purfling inside of the white lining here, just to very subtly frame the guitar a little cleaner. So that was like a bonus. I just did that little bit fancier extra. Real elegant, very fine line to kind of help set it off. This finish is a rubbed finish. Like in the 20s and 30s, they were best known for doing their rubbed finishes, and the way that they touted themselves was the Stradivarius of fretted instruments. And of course, Stradivarius used a rubbed finish, and most of the real purists about Stradivarius say that he used a tongue oil recipe. You know, all violin makers had their own varnish recipe, and that was a point of pride. Myself, I use tongue oil, and I mix in a little bit of varnish. I've come around to adding a little bit of gloss. I've used pure tongue oil on many of them, and I love the matte finish, but people do crave a little bit of gloss, so I've since added a little bit of varnish into my mixture. But to hear this guitar, it's got that same chime. It's got that same sound. each guitar is a little bit different. The wood choices, the exact way that the bracing comes out, and then just all the voodoo that goes into a guitar accounts for a little bit different voice on each one, but it seems to have that same character. But I'm going to play these guitars just side by side so you can kind of hear. This guitar is brand new too. Just came off the bench yesterday, and this thing has been around for you know, going on 70 years, 65 years. Very similar character. Strings are a little older on this one. Bass strings are a little deader right now just because the strings are older, but very similar. So anyway, I just wanted to document that stuff and share some of my own thoughts with people. I have some other guitars around. Maybe I'll do a different video on another one. Thank you.